Украине. То, во что это вылилось, уже смело можно называть, не лукавя, Третьей мировой войной. Совершенно точно. Мы прямо сейчас сражаемся, если не с НАТО, то уж точно с инфраструктурой НАТО. И это тоже надо...
If he really wants to deter NATO involvement and he believes that he can shatter NATO, then he would perhaps use a low-yield nuclear weapon. Where would he use it? Probably not in Ukraine, but perhaps on the staging areas or some populated area in Poland. This is what's usually done in the Russian exercises.
Getting in some breaking news now. Poland's government has issued a guide that instructs public how to prepare for a crisis like war and what to do from during attacks with weapons ranging from conventional to chemical and nuclear.
Но даже то, что есть посягательство на нашу территорию, есть казус белли, абсолютный повод к войне, настоящий, без дураков.
Когда вы говорите про войну, вы имеете в виду объявление мобилизации тотальной?
Стоп. И здесь думать нечего. Здесь нужна ответка, но какая?
Moving on now, Russia warned on Thursday that if Sweden and Finland join NATO, then Russia would deploy nuclear weapons and hypersonic missiles in the heart of Europe.
But what if one day Taiwan does come under a PLA attack? On Tuesday, the government released an online handbook on what civilians should do in the event of a war.
你跟你说，这不是我们警察造成，这是整个国际形势造成的。你们再这样闹下去，我们中国没希望了。要跟美国打仗了，你知道吗？要跟美国打仗了，你知道吗？要跟美国打仗了，你知道吧？你们还是这样子。我们没有闹。对啊，没。
Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. This thing is about to go to the next level. So we're going to discuss some stories that have come out in the last 24 hours. Let's just get right to it. Okay, so a 2-page verbal statement was sent out to the State Department by the Russian Embassy in Washington. Russia warns Washington for the first time of unforeseen consequences if it continues to equip Ukraine. This development, of course, comes after the loss of the Russian cruiser Moskva. If you want to know where this is from a Greek news source, which seems to be really ahead of the curve when it comes to their reporting on this issue. According to Russian media, Putin was informed overnight about the loss of the ship and was furious in a way we have never seen him before, in quotes, Russian sources said. According to the same information, the Russian officials told him that the Russian cruise missile, the Ukrainian anti-ship missile Neptune, this is what they're saying, did not hit, noting that the attack was made with NATO weapons, photographing the British behind the attack harpoon. I don't know what that is. Okay, so really obviously the Russians are denying that it was hit. Now, I think the gist of what they're saying here, however, is that the Russians are really starting to realize, not so much realize because they've known this all along, that they're not fighting just the Ukrainian military, they're fighting NATO, okay? And that is one of the reasons why this thing is taking so long, because they're not just fighting Ukraine, they're fighting NATO. And Russia has warned the United States that there will be unforeseen consequences if Washington continues to supply arms to Ukraine, the Washington Post reported today. Now, this is getting serious. Now, listen to this. So Putin has a dilemma right now, okay? Either he can go to war and cause a general mobilization to put the economy in a state of war mobilization, okay, which is going to basically bring the full force of the Russian military to bear, at least what they can spare, because remember, they got this massive border that they need to enforce. And they just sold India some Russian S-400 missile defense systems, which should be an indication also of the fact that they clearly have enough of these things to go around if they're still selling them during this war. So this is why I don't believe the line that Russia is running out of stuff. I just can't believe that. If they're literally sending India one of their best missile defense systems as we speak. Now, because of that, though, that might rub China the wrong way. But we really don't know how that love triangle is working right now. We're just going to have to wait and see. So, according to this article, and this is what I've heard from some people, however, you're going to hear mixed opinions about this. Putin cannot face NATO in a conventional war. I would say they probably couldn't face NATO if you include the US. If you're just talking about Europe, then yeah, they probably could. But if you're talking about US involved in NATO, then I would probably lean towards agreeing with this, but I don't know enough about it to be absolutely sure. Putin cannot face NATO in a conventional war. The inexhaustible flow of ammunition from the collective west of Ukraine has resulted in horrific losses to the Russian army. He is therefore faced with those two options, like we just mentioned. Now, as we know, Russia has 2,000 tactical nuclear warheads that they could deploy at the drop of a hat. And that video footage that I showed you early in the montage appears to show those launching systems being moved towards the eastern part of Ukraine. So very, very serious stuff. Now, apparently, take this for what it's worth, the Russian aircraft of the Apocalypse is in the air. Immediately after the strike, the Moskva cruiser received a large amount of Russian air activity. You're going to have to forgive me, this is a translated article. Sources say that the biggest air mobilization took place since the beginning of the Russian-Ukraine war. The Tupolev Tu-214 SR command aircraft, or Apocalypse aircraft, was also in the air. This is a modified version of the Tu-214. Is a Russian so-called Apocalypse plane. It is equipped to provide the Russian leadership with a mobile command and control center in the event of a major flood or war. I wonder why they chose flood. 4 built-in generators provide ample power, while a set of external fuel tanks allow the aircraft to remain in the air for 10,000 kilometers. They also go into great depth about, the different types of aircraft that were in the air. Now, in terms of how the Russian population is reacting to this is very important, because we're likely going to see a mass mobilization now. They're likely going to turn the heat up a notch. They've already targeted Kiev with strikes. By the time this video is released, that may have intensified. It's hard to say. They're likely going to start to target Odessa or wherever those missiles came from that took out the cruiser or supposedly took out the cruiser. Now, either way, okay, just going back a bit, whether it was taken out or whether it was incompetence and somebody, accidentally lit a fire that blew up an ammunition stash or whatever the case, it was incompetence. So either way, it doesn't look good for the Russians. And, and that's something that needs to be admitted. Now, in terms of what it means to the Russian Navy, apparently it was an older ship. They have a ton of destroyers and frigates and corvettes and a variety, a huge navy, so not as huge as the United States, of course, but they have a very sizable navy. So while it's a big sort of blow to Russian morale, it actually could have the opposite effect. This could mobilize the entire population for war. And it almost makes me wonder, maybe it was a bit of a false flag. It could have been, because anyways, it's hard to say. Let's not go there. Now, Russian state-sponsored media, you've seen some of those clips at the beginning, and we're just going to kind of go over a little bit about what was said there, because it's very, very important to understand how the psyche, or at least the psyche, according to Russian state-sponsored media, is transforming. Now, we know that 80% of people in Russia, at least to the best of our understanding, is in support of this thing. So take that for what it's worth. Now, Russian experts and analysts stress that the term special military operation should cease to exist, and that they need to declare a full-scale war. A full-scale war, okay? Asked why the special operation in Ukraine lasts so long, Russian state television presenter Olga Skabeva stressed that Russia is fighting World War III against NATO, and that it's not fighting the Ukraine. Now, you have to understand, and I mean, she does kind of have a point, okay? If they were just fighting the Ukraine, this probably would have been over a long time ago. But because you're having arms resupply, because you're having intelligence, because you're having the whole propaganda campaign in the world behind, and you're having mercenaries go there. So you're essentially having, mercenaries from NATO countries using NATO weapons, utilizing full spectrum NATO intelligence to fight the Russians in Ukraine. So, I mean, she's not totally wrong. She's not right either, but it's something to bear in mind. If you're trying to be realistic and looking at what's going on here, you have to keep that in mind. Many are wondering, could it not have been done faster? Everybody wants the military operation to be completed faster. Everybody wants the final victory. This is one of the TV hosts saying this. Everyone wants the goals completed. One could say that it has escalated into World War III. This is true. We are currently fighting against NATO infrastructure, if not against NATO itself. We must recognize this. The war being waged by NATO, they want a full-scale war. Now, according to the CIA, what are they really going to tell us, right? On the one hand, I can sympathize with the CIA and some of the things they do in terms of maintaining, secrecy at the highest level for national security. On the other hand, some of the things that we've heard about what they've done, are seemingly evil, to say the least. However, even that said, we don't really know how the game is played at the absolute top. I mean, look, you could make lots of rational arguments when it comes to national security every which way from Sunday. But that said, they're saying that they don't think that the Russians are currently posturing in a nuclear way, in a way which is irregular. Okay. So, and that could mean a variety of things, however. That could be for the purpose of creating calm. That could serve the interest of, the military-industrial complex to make us more compelled to get involved in the war if we don't think that it's going to go nuclear. It could just be, maintaining, minimizing public panic. That it could serve that purpose. It's really hard to say what the motive of coming out with that is, or it's just to play pretend like they don't know what's going on. It's really hard to say. But they're saying that they don't think that the threat is elevated when everything else really appears to speak to the contrary. And then when you have Russian state television now saying that this is, we need to step it up in a very aggressive fashion. And I pay attention to it because you got to see what the other side is thinking, right? And they've amped it up a lot as a result of this. So this may well have the opposite effect. And with the supposed incursions onto Russian territory by Ukrainian forces, I don't know. I mean, that's that they're claiming. The Ukrainians are denying that they're doing this, so that could be false flag. Who knows? But with all that combined, we know that it's not good, because that means that this thing is going to intensify. You see all this buildup of the military in the east. They're starting to target Kiev again. So it's likely that they're going to become more indiscriminate. I mean, if you were to put them on trial for war crimes right now, I mean, what incentive would they have? And this is the problem. I'm not saying they haven't done that or anything like that. I'm just saying that, it becomes very hard to de-escalate the situation if you're already accused of committing a crime and you're already charged for the crime and prosecuted for the crime. It doesn't, you might as well just keep going. You know what I mean? So that's the scary part with all this. And I know a lot of people think that this should just happen right away, because we've been so conditioned by video games and the media to think, yeah, you should just be able to mobilize hundreds of thousands of troops overnight. But these things can take months, okay? Battles can take months, if not years, to prepare. And, you have to remember, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And if you don't want to pay attention to this stuff, I don't blame you. Go and do something else. Live your life. I'm sure when the disaster finally hits, it'll be undeniable, and it'll be on every mainstream media news network. And then you can, take an interest.